Camila Williams walked into the elegant Chicago bistro with the quiet confidence of a woman who had survived far worse than bad dates and broken promises. It was her 29th birthday, though she doubted anyone in the room could guess. She looked polished, composed, and steady navy blue dress hugging her form, hair pinned back with soft waves framing her face. But beneath that calm exterior, her heart carried years of battles no one ever saw. She had canceled a family dinner for this blind date, trusting her cousin's insistence that the man was a good catch. She had arrived exactly 15 minutes early. She respected punctuality. She respected effort. She respected intentions. What she didn't expect was disrespect waiting for her like a shadow. Derek Morrison slid into the seat across from her with the gracelessness of someone who believed his presence was a favor. He didn't bother with hello, didn't offer a smile, didn't acknowledge the effort she had put into being there. His eyes scanned her quickly, and something in his gaze shifted, something sharp, dismissive and careless. "Look," Derek announced loudly, not even lowering his voice despite the crowded room. "I'll be blunt. When my cousin said you were black, I thought she meant, dark-skinned. I didn't expect something so obvious." The words hung in the air like spilled gasoline. A few diners paused. A couple turned their heads. But Camila didn't move. She sat perfectly still, perfectly composed, hands folded gently in her lap. "I understand," she replied, voice calm, even warm. "And what exactly did you expect?" Derek laughed, a harsh, cracking sound that made nearby tables stiffen. "Someone more compatible with me? I work in finance, 6 figures. My lifestyle is different. I need someone who fits into that world. Someone who won't attract attention for the wrong reasons." He gestured vaguely at her as if she were an inconvenience, an accidental delivery to the wrong address. "My colleagues won't understand," he added proudly. As if that excused everything, what Derek didn't notice, couldn't possibly understand, was the peculiar gleam that appeared in Camila's eyes. It wasn't hurt. It wasn't humiliation. It was something far more dangerous. It was the clear, icy serenity of someone who had been here before, and who knew exactly what to do with men like him. "Your colleagues," she repeated softly. "From Sterling and Associates?" Derek blinked. "How do you know where I work?" "Female intuition," she said with a small smile. But there was frost behind the curve of her lips. Not anger-precision. The waiter approached nervously with menus. Sensing the tension, but Derek waved him off with a rude flick of his hand. "Look, I'm just going to be honest," he continued, leaning back, comfortable in his arrogance. "This can't work. You seem polite, but my world is complicated. Too complicated for—" He hesitated only for a moment. "For a black woman to understand." Camila didn't flinch. If anything, she smiled wider. "Exactly," she whispered. Derek visibly relaxed, misreading her expression completely. To him, her stillness looked like acceptance. To her, every word he uttered was another bullet she calmly tucked into the chamber of a weapon he didn't even know she possessed. She stood, smooth and elegant, not a stitch out of place. Derek frowned, confused that she didn't look wounded. "Well," she said softly, "thank you for your honesty." He nodded without meeting her eyes, already grabbing his phone, laughing loudly as he walked away, bragging into it about another disastrous date. Camila remained seated for a moment, steadying her breath, but not because she was shaken, because she was planning. She had always been a planner. A few seconds passed before a small voice pulled her out of her thoughts. "Why are you sad?" Camila looked down to see a little girl with big brown eyes, curly hair, and a gaze far too wise for her age. She couldn't have been more than 4.cm. Isla smiled, and this smile was real. "I'm not sad, sweetheart. I'm planning." The girl tilted her head, trying to understand. "Planning what?" "Justice," Camila whispered. "I'm planning justice." The child's mother hurried over, flustered. "I'm so sorry, Annie, come here." "She's just very curious." But Annie didn't move. She studied Camila with thoughtful intensity. "You look like my favorite teacher," she said. She gets sad sometimes too. But she protects us from the mean boys. Something cracked inside Camila, something small, hidden, and lonely. And do you like your teacher? She asked gently. I love her, Annie said without hesitation. Then, with the seriousness of a judge making a ruling, she asked, Can you be my new mom? My mommy lives in heaven. Before Camila could respond, Annie's father rushed over, cheeks red with embarrassment. Annie, you can't ask people that. I'm so sorry. We're still adjusting. She lost her mother 6 months ago. It's all right, Camila said softly. She was still crouched at Annie's height. I'm honored she thought of me. The family walked away and Camila's phone buzzed. Derek had posted a new Instagram story. A photo of the table she sat at empty, now captioned, When your cousin says her friend is exotic, but forgets to mention she's a quote better. Hashtag high standards. His colleagues laughed in the comments. Bro, you escaped a trap. Policy for Tinder now, lol. That's why I only date blondes. Each comment another drop of poison. But Camila didn't feel poison. She felt clarity. Absolute, razor-sharp clarity. What Derek didn't know and would never have guessed was that Camila Williams had a PhD in behavioral psychology from Harvard, that she specialized in institutional discrimination, that she had spent 5 years collecting evidence on exactly the kind of men who had just exposed themselves publicly. Sterling and Associates was one of the companies in her research, and Derek Morrison had just become the perfect case study. That night, she drove home with steady hands. She wasn't angry. She was focused. She called her research assistant. Jessica, it's me. I need everything on Sterling and Associates. And everything on a man named Derek Morrison. What exactly are we looking for? Jessica asked. Patterns, Camila said. There are always patterns. Hours later, the evidence began filling her screen. Derek's public posts, his captions, his friends' comments, photos of exclusive parties with no black faces, clubs with discriminatory reputations, a LinkedIn network full of people who celebrated his high standards. By 2 a.m., Derek sent her one final message. No hard feelings, right? Nothing personal? I just prefer my type. You understand? She took a screenshot. Oh, Derek, she whispered. I understand perfectly. What he didn't know was that he had just signed his own professional death warrant. Tomorrow, the real game would begin. And Camila Williams played to win. The afternoon sun burned across the airport runway as the blades of the silent helicopter cast long shadows behind the millionaire man. The two air hostesses exchanged quiet glances, unsure why he suddenly looked so tense. The black woman standing before him kept her arms wrapped tightly around herself, as if holding her courage in place. The wind tugged at her hair, but she didn't step back. She refused to move until he answered her. You left without saying a word, she said, her voice steady but carrying a tremor underneath. You think money and a helicopter give you the right to disappear whenever it suits you? He inhaled slowly, eyes tracing the ground before lifting back to her face. I didn't disappear, he said, though even he sounded unconvinced. I was trying to protect you. Protect me from what? She asked, and the question hit him harder than he expected. The air hostesses behind him straightened, pretending not to listen, but every word fell heavy in the open space. You don't understand what I'm dealing with, he said quietly. The business, the people watching me, the ones waiting for me to make a mistake. You'd be dragged right into the middle of it. Her jaw clenched. I was already in the middle of it the moment you walked into my life. You don't get to decide when I matter and when I don't. The pilot in the cockpit glanced back, sensing that neither of them would be boarding soon. The engines stayed off. The runway stayed quiet. Only the wind moved. He stepped closer to her, lowering his voice. If something happened to you because of me, I wouldn't survive it. What's happening to me now? She whispered. You leaving without warning. You avoiding my calls. You pretending you're alone when you're not? You think that hurts less? He swallowed. Her words were sharper than anything his rivals ever threw at him. She looked at the helicopter, then back at him. If you're leaving again, just say it. But don't expect me to chase you anymore. He shook his head immediately. I don't want to leave. I want you with me, but I need to handle something first. Something dangerous. Her eyes softened for a moment, but she didn't step closer. Then stop running from me and start telling me the truth. For the first time that day, he felt the weight of every secret he'd tried to bury, and he knew he had run out of time to hide any of them. The moment the words left her mouth, the air around them felt heavier. The millionaire man looked over his shoulder at the pilot and gave a small nod. The cockpit door closed again, giving them a moment of privacy. The two air hostesses stepped back toward the helicopter, pretending to busy themselves with safety checks, though both kept glancing nervously at the couple. He turned back to the black woman in front of him. If I tell you everything, he said slowly, I need you to promise you won't walk away halfway through it. She crossed her arms. The only reason I'd walk away is if you keep hiding things. He exhaled deeply. Come with me. Not on the helicopter. Just over there. He pointed to a quiet corner of the runway near the fence, away from the curious eyes of the crew. She hesitated, then followed him. When they reached the far corner, he rested his hand on the cold metal railing. 3 weeks ago, he began, I found out someone inside my own company was selling information about me, my deals, my travel plans, even the people I spend time with. When I realized you were being mentioned in those files, I panicked. She frowned. So you pushed me away to... What? Protect me? I thought distancing myself would erase your name from their interest, he said. But it only made them watch you more closely. Her breath caught, but she didn't step back. You should have told me, she whispered. I know, he admitted. But I've spent my entire life dealing with threats, enemies, people trying to take what I built. I never had to think about what it meant for someone I cared about. Not until you. The honesty in his voice softened her anger, but not her hurt. So what now? She asked. Are they still watching? He nodded. That's why I'm flying out today. There's a meeting, an important one. If I don't negotiate the deal myself, the wrong people get control. If they get that, they get everything. And you think going alone is safer? For you, yes, he said firmly. I'd never risk putting you in the same room as these men. She looked down, her voice barely audible. I didn't ask you to protect me like glass. I just asked you not to lie to me. He reached for her hand, but she didn't give it immediately. Instead, she looked at him with exhaustion carved into her expression. Every time you disappear, I'm left wondering if I did something wrong. If you just got bored. If someone else replaced me. Do you know what that feels like? His throat tightened. He shook his head. No one could replace you, ever. Silence hung between them for a few long seconds. The wind brushed against them, carrying the distant hum of airport machinery. Finally, she placed her hand in his, slow and cautious. What happens after you leave? She asked softly. I come back, he said without hesitation. No more running. No more secrets. He paused. If you'll still be here... She met his eyes. I'll be here. But if you leave again without telling me why, I won't wait the next time. He nodded, accepting the warning as truth. You won't have to. He walked her slowly back toward the helicopter. The pilot opened the door again. The two air hostesses straightened their posture, trying to read the shift in mood. Before boarding, the millionaire man turned to her once more. The wind swept his hair back, and for a moment, he looked less like a billionaire and more like a man terrified of losing something real. When I return, he said, I want you by my side, not behind me, not hidden away. With me. She felt something shift inside her, fear, relief, hope, all tangled together. Then don't make me regret believing you, she said quietly. He stepped onto the helicopter, his eyes never leaving hers until the door closed. As the blades began to turn, she held her ground, watching him rise into the air. He pressed his palm to the glass window. She lifted hers in return. The helicopter rose higher, the noise swallowing the runway, until it finally tilted upward and disappeared into the sky. She stood alone on the tarmac, realizing something undeniable, whatever waited for him in that meeting. Was the moment that would decide both their futures, Long after the helicopter vanished into the clouds, she remained standing on the runway, her heartbeat still thrumming with the weight of everything he had said. The quiet that followed felt wrong, almost hollow, as if the world itself paused the moment he lifted off. She finally stepped back, wrapping her arms around herself as she walked toward the parking lot. Every few seconds, her eyes drifted upward again, searching for the helicopter even though it was long gone. She replayed his words, his expression, the fear he tried to hide. He wasn't a man who feared losing money, deals, or power, but losing her. That shook him in a way she had never seen. She reached her car, but instead of getting inside, she leaned against the door. What if he didn't come back? What if this meeting was far more dangerous than he admitted? What if the people watching him already knew she mattered to him? Her stomach tightened. She hated feeling powerless. Inside the helicopter, he sat rigidly, staring at the small reflection of himself in the window. One of the air hostesses brought him a glass of water. He didn't touch it. His thoughts stayed anchored to the runway, where she stood with a mixture of strength and vulnerability he had never seen in anyone else. The pilot's voice broke the silence. "Sir, estimated flight time is 47 minutes. "Good," he replied, though his voice carried no relief. He knew exactly who he's meeting today, and he knew exactly what it would cost him if anything went wrong. Back on the ground, she finally drove away from the airport, but her mind refused to settle. She ended up at the cafe where she and he had once spent hours talking like two people with simple lives, not like a billionaire and a woman caught in shadowed danger. She sat at the same table, her fingers tapping absent rhythms on the wooden surface. Her phone buzzed. For a moment she thought it was him, but it was an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something in her gut twisted. She opened the message. A single line appeared, "You should stay away from him." Her chest tightened. She checked the sender, no name, no details, just a blank number. Another message appeared before she could react. "This is your last warning." A chill crawled through her entire body. She looked around the cafe, suddenly aware of every face, every movement, every pair of eyes. But no one looked suspicious. No one looked at her at all. Her fingers trembled as she locked her phone. For a long moment she couldn't think, couldn't breathe. Someone wasn't just watching him. They were watching her. She stood up abruptly and left the cafe, her heart pounding so loudly she felt it in her ears. She reached her car, locked the doors, and glanced at her phone again. She wanted to call him. Tell him everything. But if he was walking into danger already, her fear might distract him. She had promised not to walk away. She didn't want to be the reason his focus shattered at the wrong moment. Meanwhile, the helicopter descended toward a private airstrip outside the city, dust swirling beneath its landing gear. The moment the door opened, two security men in dark suits were already waiting. He stepped out, shoulders squared, expression cold. One of the men nodded respectfully. "They're expecting you inside?" He walked past them, but his mind kept drifting back to the woman he left behind. The warning he never wanted her to face alone. The danger that was now closer than he thought. Inside the dim meeting room, he felt the tension before the door even closed behind him. Three men sat at a long table, their eyes sharp, calculating. "Let's begin," the one in the middle said. "You've kept us waiting." He sat down, hiding his worry beneath a mask of control. "Then let's finish this." But far away, in her car, her phone buzzed again, this time with a photo. A photo of her, standing on the airport runway minutes after he left. She felt her blood go cold. And she finally understood, whoever he feared, was already watching her more closely than she realized. Her hands trembled as she stared at the photo. The angle was distant, taken from somewhere she couldn't identify, but it was unmistakably her standing alone on the runway, looking up at the sky. Whoever sent it hadn't just been nearby. They had been watching her long before today. Her breath hitched as she locked the phone and forced herself to think. Running wouldn't help. Hiding wouldn't help. She needed to warn him, but her instincts screamed that calling now might expose even more. Still, she couldn't sit still. She started the car, glancing in the mirrors for anyone following. Her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a message. It was a call from his number. Her chest tightened. She answered instantly. Before she could speak, his voice came through, low and tense. "Are you safe? Don't lie to me." The tremor in his tone told her everything. He already knew something was wrong. She squeezed the phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. I don't know," she whispered, her voice breaking despite her effort to stay calm. "Someone sent me warnings. And a picture of me at the airport." There was a sharp inhale on the other end of the line, followed by a silence thick enough to choke on. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed. All softness was gone. "Listen to me carefully. Lock your doors. Drive somewhere crowded. Don't go home. Don't go anywhere familiar. I'm sending someone to you right now." Her breath shook. Who's doing this?" "That's what I'm trying to stop," he said, frustration slipping through the cracks. "I never wanted you involved. I thought distancing myself would make them ignore you, but clearly—" He cut himself off, anger rising. "Just tell me where you are." She looked around the cafe parking lot. "I'm near the—" The line went dead. She froze, staring at her phone as the screen went dark. The signal icon vanished. No bar, zero connection. Not even emergency service? Someone had cut her off. Her heart pounded so violently she felt it in her throat. She restarted the phone. Nothing changed. The network was gone. Completely gone. She didn't wait another second. She turned on the engine and sped out of the parking lot, her eyes flicking between the mirrors and the road, searching for anyone tailing her. Every car felt suspicious. Every face felt dangerous. Her hands were slick with sweat, the steering wheel slipping under her grip. Meanwhile, in the meeting room, he stared at his phone as the call dropped. A cold wave hit him, followed by a burning surge of rage. One of the men at the table smirked. "Trouble at home?" He stood up so quickly the chair slammed against the floor. Security guards turned toward him, hands on their weapons, but he didn't flinch. "I'm done with this meeting," he said. "If you think threatening people outside of business is going to push me, you're mistaken." The man in the center leaned back casually. "You're not done. Sit down." He walked toward the door instead. Two guards moved in front of him, blocking his path. He glared at them, ice cold. "Move!" The older man at the table tapped 2 fingers. The guards stepped aside immediately, though their eyes stayed fixed on him. "You think you can walk away from us?" The older man said. "We own every piece of air you breathe." He paused at the doorway, turning his head slightly. "Not her. You don't own her." For the first time, one of the men's expressions cracked just slightly. He left the room without another word, pulling out his secondary phone. This one never lost signal. He dialed a private number. "Find her, now, use the emergency tracker. And get my jet ready." His car was already waiting outside. He climbed in, slamming the door behind him, back on the road. She finally pulled into a crowded shopping plaza, parking beneath bright floodlights. People walked everywhere, families, teenagers, workers on break. For a moment, she let the crowd calm her breathing. She unlocked her phone again, hoping the signal had returned. Still nothing. Then a knock on her window. She jumped so hard she choked on her own breath. A man in a black cap leaned down. She couldn't see his eyes under the shadow of the brim. Her hand flew to the lock button. "Ma'am," he said, voice muffled. "Are you all right?" She shook her head quickly, refusing to lower the window. He tapped his ID badge against the glass. "Airport security. We saw something suspicious on the runway earlier today. I need to ask you a few questions." Her gut twisted. The badge looked real. Too real. She didn't trust it. She started the engine, pulled out of the parking spot, and sped away, leaving the man standing behind her. Her pulse hammered against her ribs. She didn't know where to go anymore. She didn't know who was a threat. She didn't know if she was already too late. Her phone suddenly beeped. Not a call, a GPS ping, a location. Message sent through encrypted software she had never seen before. It appeared even without network connection. His doing. The message read, "Go here. Don't stop. Don't talk to anyone. It led her to the outskirts of the city. To a private hangar, she hesitated only a moment before pressing her foot to the gas. 20 minutes later, she arrived at the steel gates of a dimly lit airfield. A tall man in a suit opened the gate silently. No questions. No expressions. He motioned her inside. Her headlights swept across a sleek private jet waiting with its engines humming. The ramp was lowered. He was already there. He rushed down the ramp the moment he saw her car, ripping the door open before she could step out. Relief washed over his face, raw and unfiltered, something she had never seen from a man like him. "Did anyone follow you?" he demanded. "No," she said, though her voice trembled. "But someone knocked on my window. Someone sent me pictures." "Someone?" He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she felt his heartbeat against her cheek. "I'm not letting them touch you. Not one of them." Her hands gripped his coat, desperate, terrified. "What is happening to us?" He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. "I tried to keep my world away from you, but they crossed a line today." His thumb brushed her cheek. "We're leaving. Both of us. Right now." Her breath caught. "Leaving where?" "Somewhere they can't reach you," he said. "And from there, I'll end this." She searched his eyes, trying to find certainty in his fear. "Are we running?" "No," he whispered. "We're surviving." He guided her up the ramp, his hand never letting go of hers. As the jet doors closed behind them, the engines roared louder, shaking the ground. The world outside was becoming dangerous. But inside that plane, for the first time since he entered her life, she felt like she wasn't facing it alone. The jet lifted into the night sky, carrying them toward an uncertain future, together,